J2b-Y621872 isn't the first line of J2b to be found in China, but it's interesting because Y-DNA relatives from China indicate that it's likely been introduced there before 500 years ago, and the next closest relative is from Tajikistan. A Chinese researcher theorizes a connection to Sogdians, so I wanted to talk a little about this group that I didn't know much about prior to making this video. This is in the major branch of J2b called J2b-Z2453. I have yet to make a summary video about this 13,000-year-old major subclade of J2b, but I will do so sometime soon. Who were the Sogdians? They were an Eastern Iranian-speaking group. They're mentioned in the first chapter of the Vendidad, which consists of a list of the 16 good regions created by Ahura Mazda for the Iranians. The second of the good lands and countries which I, Ahura Mazda, created was the Gava of the Sogdians. Thereupon came Angramainyu, who is all death, and he counter-created the locust, which brings death unto cattle and plants. Because this haplogroup J2b-Z2453 has been found in 6th millennium BCE ancient samples from Mentesh Tepe, Azerbaijan, it makes sense that the Sogdians could be considered a culture that could have mediated this male line to a migration further to the east, eventually to China. The tomb and epitaph of An Jia are a testament to the influence of the Sogdians in China. An Jia, who died in 579 at the age of 62, was from a Sogdian noble family from Bukhara. He was buried in Xi'an, then capital of northern Zhou. According to his epitaph, he was the son of An Tujian, a governor of Mei Prefecture in Sichuan, and Lady Du of Changsong, a former county in Wuwei, Gansu. Since his mother was from Gansu and father was known to have lived in Sichuan, we can assume that An Jia himself was also born in that part of China. He was in charge of commercial affairs for foreign merchants from Middle Asia doing business in China, as well as Zoroastrian affairs for the Tong Prefecture of the Northern Zhou dynasty. He held the official Chinese title Sàbǎo, meaning protector or guardian, derived from the Sogdian word Sartpao, caravan leader, used for government-appointed leaders of the Sogdian immigrant merchant community. An Jia was based in Xi'an and was buried there. This is the end of the Silk Road in China. Sogdian tombs in China are among the most lavish of the period in this country and are only slightly less lavish than imperial tombs, suggesting that the Sogdian Sàbǎo were among the wealthiest members of the population. Given the current YFull estimates of when the most recent common ancestor of the exclusively Chinese subclade of J2b-Z2453 lived is about 500 years ago, I'm not expecting that An Jia could have been the male line ancestor of this branch in China, because then we would have expected the TMRCA to be about 1500 years. I think this is probably outside the 95% confidence interval, or it's pretty close to the edges of the 95% confidence interval. So I'm going to continue with some of the later history of the Sogdians, because I think that this line's migration to China would have been a bit later. From 722, following the Muslim invasion, new groups of Sogdians, many of them Nestorian Christians, emigrated to the east, where the Turks had been more welcoming and more tolerant of their religion since the time of Sasanian religious persecutions. They particularly created colonies in the area of Semericiet, where they continued to flourish into the 10th century with the rise of the Karluks and the Karachanid Khanate. These Sogdians are known for producing beautiful silver plates with Eastern Christian iconography, such as the Anikova dish. The Umayyads fell in 750 to the Abbasid Caliphate, which quickly asserted itself in Central Asia after winning the Battle of Talas against the Chinese Tang dynasty. This conflict incidentally introduced Chinese papermaking to the Islamic world. The cultural consequences and political ramifications of this battle meant the retreat of the Chinese Empire from Central Asia. It also allowed for the rise of the Samanid Empire, a Persian state centered at Bukhara in what is now modern Uzbekistan, that nominally observed the Abbasids as their overlords, yet retained a great deal of autonomy and upheld the mercantile legacy of the Sogdians. The Sogdian language itself gradually declined in favor of the Persian language of the Samanids. That was the spoken language of renowned poets and intellectuals of the age, such as Ferdowsi of the 10th century. That language evolved to be the modern Tajik language. So too did the original religions of the Sogdians decline. Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, Manichaeism, and Nestorian Christianity all disappeared in the region by the end of the Samanid period. The Samanids were also responsible for converting the surrounding Turkic peoples to Islam. I think going by the Young estimate for the TMRCA from the YFull tree, it would make sense to keep following the history of the region of the Sogdians to consider other types of historical events regarding Sogdians or other people from that area migrating to China for this particular male line that has a most recent common ancestor estimated to have lived about 500 years ago. We'll have to see how the YFull tree estimates will be changed when they update the tree next. I think 4 of these Chinese samples were only recently submitted. They are all indicating their male line comes from Chongqing, and I'm sure that the Chinese researcher involved in this has other evidence that that he's taking into account regarding the possible migration. This is just what I could do in a very short amount of time, hopefully provide some background into who are the Sogdians and how they could have mediated various Central Asian and Western Asian male lines to China.